Greetings and salutations, Dota fans. Welcome into this edition of the G-1 Champions League. Just about said the wrong thing because I use that greeting for everything, but that's okay. It's the G-1 Champions League. We're in Phase 3 of the Ayesee Qualifier, and we've got a powerhouse taking on an upstart. And yeah, Chain Stack, unfortunately, going to be rolling with two stand-ins. Going to make their task even more difficult today. And what a task it's going to be. Zenith rolls into play today, a team on a roll, to put it mildly. The Juggernaut squad from Southeast Asia has absolutely eviscerated every obstacle in front of them to the tune of a 9-0 overall series record and an utterly unthinkable 13 consecutive games won just here in March. And that includes their latest 2-0 win over DK, which, to be honest, they seem to have no trouble picking apart their opponents. Both in terms of drafting and strategy in that match. They made it look pretty easy. Of all the teams in the Phase 3 field, none have been as consistent in terms of amount of play and quality of play throughout March so far. In fact, Zenith has seen more action in the last 30 days than DK, Rattlesnake, and LGD China combined. They're a well-oiled machine, and at least in the eyes of those keeping score at home, a team that has to be considered one of the favorites to have a chance of knocking off Invictus Gaming in Group B and advancing here out of Phase 3. They're currently 1-0 in the standings, looking to stay perfect in Phase 3 with the win day. They're heavy favorites, but they've shown that they're not a team that'll let that cause them, or that will cause them to play down to their competition, especially with the showdown against Invictus Gaming looming on the horizon. Now, Chains, they're a grab bag of rising talent from Southeast Asia and Australia. They interplay today with nothing to prove and nothing to lose, really. The fact that they're here at all is remarkable in itself, especially for a team that, until about 2 weeks ago, had never played a professional game in their current iteration. But nothing to lose and nothing to prove does not mean they have nothing to gain. They're in that crucial stage of development where they're only looking to keep their name in the spotlight, but attempting to attract sponsor attention as well and etch their names into the collective consciousness of the dedicated Dota fan base. The David to the Goliath that is Zenith, Chains will need to sling more than rocks at their elite opponents if they want to come out ahead today. But with that talent and potential that they've shown us already, a win isn't utterly unthinkable so long as they come out firing early and showcase that teamwork and high-octane pressure style that gave them so much success in Phase 2. But again, Chains playing with two stand-ins. Haven't seen these guys play, know absolutely nothing about them, so I can't really comment on that. But when you're taking on Zenith, it's not usually going to be the best day to be shaking things up with their lineup. We're going to see, though, if they can somehow find a way to make it work for them. Looking at the bans and the picks so far, we can see Bat and Nyx banned out by Zenith. Arguably the two most common bans whenever you are on the dire side. I mean, you just don't want to let either of those heroes go because you can build lineups around them very easily. Chain Stack wisely banning out the Lone Druid and the Lifestealer. I actually saw Lone Druid lose again the other day. But up until now, I mean, Lone Druid has probably more than any other hero in the last 2 months seen his stock rise so incredibly high compared to where he was considered to be in terms of, you know, quote-unquote tier list so far as heroes. And teams really beginning to realize that Lone Druid is a hero that can have an entire team built around him, and he's never really weak so long as he has a decent early start and he has a composition that can make some room on the map for him. So, gonna look at Chains' first three. We got Keeper of the Light, Phantom Lancer, and Shadow Demon. Three really strong picks, and the Keeper of the Light and Phantom Lancer combination, a combination absolutely despised by pub players all over the world, and for good reason. Chakra plus Spirit Lance, it gives you what seems to be an unending string of harassment for free. The ability to just run opponents out of lane, burn through their regen very quickly, very efficiently early on. But it is very susceptible to high pressure lineups. Whenever those two are great, whenever they're just kind of sitting back behind the creep wave, Phantom Lancer's last hitting, he gets a dose of Chakra, then he throws out a Spirit Lance, and you've got Shadow Demon to disrupt as well if you really want to go for something. And obviously landing Clutch Illuminates is very, very simple whenever you have a Shadow Demon to lead off with a good disruption. But all three of those heroes, if you just get in their face and hit them once or twice, they got to run for the tower, and they have a real hard time reasserting themselves once they lose position in lane. So that's something that Chains is going to have to be very careful about. Once they get into the laning phase, they have to be dominant early, and they have to stay dominant. On the side of Zenith, we see Magnus, Rubik, and Gyrocopter. Now, Magnus and Gyrocopter is a particularly lethal combination for no other reason than Empower works really well on Gyro in every single stage of the game just because of Flak Cannon. Flak Cannon is one of those abilities, and depending on how the Gyro wants to build, seeing the Magnus come out tells me that we'll probably see Gyro skip a BKB or at least delay it, and instead go with a much more damage-oriented build. A Shadow Blade, perhaps, just get up some drums for some survivability, then go straight to, again, a Shadow Blade, get up a Demon Edge on your way to potentially an MKB or a Daedalus or whatever you want to do. And you can have those items up pretty early on Gyro, so long as he has a little room to operate. Then you stack the Empower on top of that high base damage that he will already have once he begins to fill out his inventory, and you've got supports like Keeper of the Light and Shadow Demon. And even though those are two supports that like to hang around the periphery of the fight, are usually not dead in the center of the action, the 1,000 range on Flat Cannon is really long. The distance that he can hit those supports from is utterly absurd, even when he's just attacking a creep, even if he's not even attacking an enemy hero directly. So that makes life really hard for those heroes, not to mention a Phantom Lancer. Phantom Lancer is countered in a lot of ways by a Gyrocopter. Call down plus Flat Cannon plus Rocket Barrage is enough to nuke down most Phantom Lancer armies. But what Chain Stack has going for them is the fact that they're going to have a particularly potent little army of Phantom Lancers going. Once they get Phantom Lancer, not only himself churning them out, but Shadow Demon can disrupt one as well to get a couple of illusions of his own. So you're talking potentially twice the size of the illusion army. That tells me that Zenith, looking at that and looking at what they've already picked up, they're not going to want to let this game go super late. I mean, obviously we haven't seen the big time carry pickup from them. Gyro is a late game carry, but usually Gyrocopter is going to want at least one more damage dealer to go with him, even if it's not a damage dealer that scales particularly well into the late game. You want to have a little bit more mid-game potential. A Juggernaut pick would make a ton of sense here. It would allow them to begin pushing towers and exerting some pressure onto Chain Stack. That kind of a hero, I think, would really suit them well. We actually see the DK ban out from Zenith. Don't see DK banned out too much. Hell, don't see him pick too much either. But with his high base armor, that he's certainly not necessarily high base armor, but more Dragon Blood armor that he gets from skilling his passive, that can be problematic for a Gyrocopter, and it can be something that he ends up being a roadblock for him in the mid-game, no matter how he decides to build. So, still waiting on both teams to round out their lineups. We can see Darkseer and the Nature's Prophet banned out by Zenith, just trying to go ahead and limit Chain Stack and what they're going to be able to do teamfight-wise as well as map presence-wise. And we can see the Chain Stack very much worried about pushing early team fights. They want to have room for Phantom Lancer to operate. They don't want to be running into a roadblock of March of the Machines. They don't want to have to worry about the reach and the counter initiation coming out of a Puck and a Queen of Pain. So just trying to find themselves a stable point in the mid-game. And just looking at those bans, that tells me that the Chains is worried about the mid-game potential that Zenith is already showing us. So haven't talked a whole lot about Zenith's lane so far. Rubik, more than likely going to be paired up with a Gyrocopter. Telekinesis just makes it so very easy to get Gyrocopter in a good position to pour out the full damage amount that comes from Rocket Barrage when he is isolated against the single target. And it really is just an absurd amount of damage that he can bring to bear. 690 magic damage on one target if he can find himself in that situation once it is maxed out. So Rubik plus Gyro plus one more likely to be our tri-lane. Clockwork will be the pickup from Chains. That just screams a long lane. Just someone who's going to try to suck up some experience. You could also mid him if you really, really wanted to, but you never know. I mean, Chain Stack, from what I've seen of them, which granted has not been all that much. I mean, hell, most of us haven't seen them all that much. But from what I've seen of them, they are not at all shy about trying to shake their lanes up. And where the Chain Stack really does a good job is in applying early pressure. So I think we can expect that Shadow Demon in particular to be roaming the map a little bit earlier than we might expect, especially if Zenith gives them their wish. Now, Zenith does have the ability to offensively tri-lane here, and it wouldn't be a bad call. To tell you the truth, what they could do, if they feel fairly confident about any remaining mid matchups, they can mid the Gyro, and there's the Juggernaut pick. I had mentioned the Juggernaut would work really well with this lineup. I think that's a fantastic pickup. They can mid the Juggernaut or the Gyro, but now with the Juggernaut there, the Chain Stack has to be very, very wary of an offensive tri-lane. Rubik plus Juggernaut and plus a Gyro even, and that's something that I don't know that I've ever actually seen, a Jugger and a Gyro both in an offensive tri-lane, with the Juggernaut probably taking the last hits in the support and the Gyro in the support role, or they could simply split the last hits. But I mean, it all depends on what they want to do. They have so many options available to them. 3 of their 4 heroes can mid. Magnus, an excellent mid. He can also offlane. Right now, it would seem, I mean, just on paper, if you want to go with a standard sort of a draft, it would seem that Rubik plus the Juggernaut plus one more pickup to come out would be a good offensive tri-lane. Mid the Gyro, long lane the Magnus. Or if you're going to offensive tri-lane, you can solo lane the Gyro bottom and just hope to pick up a Clockwork that he'll be up against. And then he'll be able to use Flat Cannon to zone him out and cause him problems in the lane to begin with. So plenty to do on both sides. The Chain Stack is a little bit more narrowed down in what they're going to be able to do with their lineup. I mean, Phantom Lancer does need some protecting. We've seen Phantom Lancers go mid once in a blue moon. 9 times out of 10 doesn't work out that well, though. I mean, even with Doppelwalk, it's really hard for him to do any work there. And we're going to see Tiny picked up. Okay. Now, how they're going to lane this is a bit of a mystery, really. I mean, they may solo lane the Tiny. Expect to have him up against a Clockwork, Gyro as a support, Juggernaut and Rubik and an offensive tri-lane and Magnus mid. That would work out quite well. The Chain Stack did round out their lineup with the Night Stalker, so I think they're pretty much going with the chalk here. Night Stalker mid, tri-lane of Keeper, Shadow Demon, and Phantom Lancer with Clockwork in the off lane. But seeing that Clockwork in the off lane was really key for Zenith, and I think that's why they picked up the Tiny here. I mean, Gyro, Jugger, or Tiny could wind up soloing that safe lane, just because they are pretty confident they're going to be up against the Clockwork, and Tiny should not have a ton of freedom there. So, waiting for everyone to select their heroes. Nope, we're going to jump in the game. I was going to thank everyone for being here, but you know what? I can do that anyway. Thanks to you guys for joining us here on One More Game TV. Too, if you're just tuning in, this is Game 1 of this best of 3 between the Chain Stack and Zenith here at the G1 Champions League Asia Qualifier. And we can see, I love this, by the way, our little Hexapus beginning to get his nice little sparkly effects as more and more games are played, more and more games are viewed and observed. So awesome, so awesome. If you like the Hexapus, like the way it looks, and you wish you had one of your own, make sure you pick up your G1 ticket. Also comes with a lot of great Dota games. I mean, there's that. But I mean, who buys tickets for Dota games? We buy them all for the couriers. We all know that. We'll wait for the lanes to take shape, and while we do, I will run through the lineup, see who's playing on who. Risk, the captain of the Chain Stack, the Ayesee, will be handling our Clockwork this time around. We're going to have Minerva playing on our Keeper of the Light, Phantom Lancer, played by the eponymous Chains. Then we'll have Shadow Demon, handled by OD. He's going to be one of our 2 stand-ins today, and our second stand-in, Chibik's, going to be playing on our Night Stalker, who's setting up shop in mid so far. On the side of Zenith, we've got Freedom handling our Tiny. We're going to have Rubik handled by Ice. Magnus will be played by NWP, also known as Yamate. Ice will be handling Ice Cubed, if you're keeping score at home. Will be handling our Juggernaut, and Gyrocopter will be played by XY. So, still waiting to see what they're going to end up doing with their lanes here. NWP in mid, I don't think that's too big of a surprise. And they may actually dodge this. And we see a lot of movement out of both sides right now. Minerva's actually going to go ahead and be making his way towards top. Risk is there for the moment. Want to keep an eye on him. And they are going to dodge this. This is surprising to me. Genuinely surprising. The offensive trialing potential that Zenith had here, and the ability for that tri-lane to really do a good job in the face of a Shadow Demon, a Keeper of the Light, and a Phantom Lancer is really through the roof. And they may still end up switching this up at one point or another. For now, the only thing set in stone is our Magnus versus Night Stalker here in mid. And yeah, looks like they are just going to settle into this. So right now, they've got the Gyrocopter farming, and they've got Tiny actually playing back and stacking and pulling. I don't know that I've ever seen this. I've been casting Dota for a year, more than a year. And I don't know that I've ever seen a support Tiny like this. Maybe some of you have. Maybe it's I'm old to the party. Or late to the party, I should say. Tardy to the party. There we go. There's the more orally pleasing way to say it. But, yeah, I'm positive. I have never, ever seen this. I've seen Tiny played in a variety of ways. Seen him built every way under the sun. I've seen Tiny's pick up Battle Furies before, you name it. But in a professional game, I've never seen a straight-up support Tiny like this. Now, we are going to see a disruption on Ice, but again, just the safety belt that a Blade Fury gives him means that he's going to be able to not really have to worry about dying so long as he doesn't play too far forward, so long as he doesn't get too chest out about it. Risk doing an okay job sucking up some experience, all things considered. He's halfway to level 1, right about on par with Rubik. Here in mid, we can see Magnus versus the Night Stalker now. This is a matchup that should be favorable to both squads. I mean, Chibik should have no problem finding his farm here against Yamate, and Yamate equally should have no problem finding his own ability to get some gold and a suck-up experience. Really is no reason why either hero should struggle a ton, and we should see that. I mean, we can already see 7 and 7 on both sides in terms of CS. A couple more denies for the Magnus, but, you know, whatever. I mean, unless that mounts up into the double digits and Night Stalker's not doing anything back, and we actually see Chibik's dodging that. They both looking to get the 2-minute rune. It is going to be spotted out at bottom. OD picks up the regen. And in the meantime, Ice is actually doing an excellent job, all things considered. This is just the strength of the hero. And what I was talking about, so far as his safety net, that is the Blade Fury. He can play a lot more far forward. He doesn't really have to worry about getting busted with a big Illuminator or anything, so long as he has some kind of vision. And we can actually see the counter warding already coming out from Minerva, as he did get the ward down and block the creep camp. But he's already just about level 4, which is fantastic for it to be 2.5 minutes in. And he's actually getting a decent amount of last hits, too. He's got 5 last hits. So, I mean, that's not the most gold in the world and certainly not going to turn the game. But to have that extra 250 or so gold at this stage of the game really is excellent. We can already see he's got his tier 1 boots, as well as enough for a TP scroll if he really wants to pick one up. In the meantime, this tri-lane out of Zenith continuing to just churn along. Our gyrocopter is on the board in terms of farm, but Magnus right behind him, Phantom Lancer not far behind either, so very quiet all over the map. Now, let's start talking about what's going to happen when the laning phase begins to break down. When you look at the chain stack, they have a lineup that is built to do what I said was going to be key for them, and I stick by that. If Chains wants to have any chance to win this game, they're going to have to play very, very aggressive in the later stages of the early game and on into the mid game. And they're a team who knows how to do that. We've seen them do it very well in a number of instances throughout the G1 Asia qualifiers so far. They know how to put the pedal to the metal. They just got to make sure that they don't let up on the throttle at all once they start. If they get a kill lead, they need to ride that for 20 minutes or more and try to get a win in the mid game. The reason for that, Zenith is going to outgrind them. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Zenith, one of the best teams on the planet, under the best of circumstances, a team that's extremely difficult to compete with in the late game, just because of how consistent they are with their mechanics, how consistent they are with their communication and their movement. But when you're playing with two stand-ins, especially, as is the case with Chains today, they're not going to get a win here today by getting into a 30-40 minute grind it out, let's go 5-on-5 Dota at 45 minutes into the game, sort of a game plan. That's just not going to work for them. And they've drafted to have a lineup that is going to be viable in the mid-game. So, talking with that in mind, taking a look at the Phantom Lancer, I would be really surprised if Phantom Lancer didn't just go straight up drums defusal hard. And here in mid, yeah, we're going to have Chibix most likely picked off. And that's just good movement again that I was talking about out of Zenith, showcasing it there. No escape mechanism on the Night Stalker in the early parts of the day, and that just really neuters the Night Stalker's potential moving through to the first night, which will be upon us in about 90 seconds or so. In the meantime, Zenith is going to go ahead and dive out Risk, and this is really what Chains can't afford to have happen. They've now given up First Blood. They've now given up 2 heroes. And this top tier 1 now going to be under massive threat. We're going to see Keeper of the Light make his way over here. He's got 2 points into Illuminate, so he is going to be able to ward this off before the towers drop anytime soon. And that is one of the inherent strengths of Keeper of the Light, is he does give you a very, very stable anchor. If you want to just keep towers up, you want to dedicate just him to trying to keep a lane standing. But this isn't something Zenith is going to let up. They've already got the tower down to tier 1. Now here comes the reaction out of Risk. He's rejoining the Keeper of the Light now. But it's only going to be a minute or two if they continue to put pressure on like this before it drops. Now, this Tiny is really the intriguing hero on the map to me. Because, again, I've never seen a Tiny run in a support role like this. You know, just a flat-out, literally, flat-out stack and pull. We're not going to worry about giving you any farm priority for the first few minutes of the laning phase at the very least. And Ice now with Omni Slash. And, yeah, I mean, we can just see how chest out he's playing. And he's just going to go for it. He's going to take a few last hits, feeling as if he's under no threat whatsoever, and then pull back. All of these lanes going remarkably well so far for Zenith, and now we can see that Chains wants to change that. Courier's just hanging out by the tower, and now we're going to see a Void thrown out. Illuminate, whoo, came up just a little bit short. Now, night has come, so Chibix likely to begin moving across the map to try and make something happen. Very important stretch of 6 minutes right now for them. They have to make something happen in this first night. If they don't, they're liable to just flat out get beat by Zenith very, very soon. The Phantom Lancer is not doing a bad job at all. He's sitting on top of our CS board right now. Still keeping an eye on what items he's going to pick up. Again, I'm really favoring a mid-game centric drums diffusal build. Skip the Ring of Aquila completely. I mean, what do you really need it for if you have a Keeper of the Light around to chakra you back mana anytime he can? Yeah, not a single point put into Doppelwalk, by the way. And that's, of course, a product of it being a tri-lane versus just a solo lane, but also indicative that he wants to fight. He wants to be ready to push towers a lot earlier, and is even willing to die once or twice if needs be when he shouldn't, just to make that happen. And here comes Ice. Going to go ahead and Blade Fury his way back out, force him off the tower. The tower's still in pretty good shape. Up at top, we can see the tier 1 on the side of Chain Stack, not in the best of shape. It's already down below half health, honestly just about a quarter. Chibix, after that death, making the choice to go ahead and spend these early moments of the first night farming up here in mid. Probably the right call. You want to be effective during the first night as a Night Stalker, but you also don't want to roll out with just tier 1 boots and a couple of Iron Branches. That's just not going to get the job done. And looking at the last hits, we can see Magnus definitely got the best of this matchup, sitting at 38 last hits, 8 denies to the 28 of the Night Stalkers. So Yamate doing a great job handling our horned Magnosaurus. 2-0, only 2 kills on the board. Both belong to Zenith as we approach 8 minutes in now. Juggernaut is just about level 8 himself and beginning to poke his nose around in the Radiant side jungle a bit. That's going to leave Chains free to continue to farm. And still keeping an eye on what items he wants to get up. He honestly could just flat out skip Drums if he wanted to. Now here we're going to have Magnus locked down. There's the Illuminate. RP's going to be spent. He is going to eat that though, but here comes Tiny. Avalanche going to be tossed, and they're going to try to re-engage. There's the Omni Slash as well as the Blade Fury. Got 1 kill. The rest are going to actually make it 2. The rest have to scramble. And yeah, not the best turnaround for Chain Stack. Juggernaut showing up just in time, using Omni Slash and Blade Fury to turn that fight around. And really, the execution wasn't awful out of Chains. They just don't have that much punching power. You can't lose 2 of your 3 lanes in the 1 lane that they won. And honestly, in a situation like that, I mean, obviously they came out ahead. And, you know, I'm going to qualify this before I make this statement. Obviously, this tri-lane versus the solo Ice was a win for Phantom Lancer. They did a better job. Phantom Lancer has 50 last hits at 8.5 minutes, which is solid. But Juggernaut's level 8... and he has 25 last hits in a lane where it was 3-on-1 for the most part. That, even though if you measure it up out of context and just say who got the most out of that, then yeah, you go, well, that's obvious. There's tri-lane, and Phantom Lancer got some farm. So you would say that goes the way of Chains. But for a Juggernaut to have done as well as he did there, and to free the map up for the rest of his team, and to guarantee that Gyro had that kind of farm, and Tiny, I mean, even Tiny sitting at 12, that's not god-awful. Given the situation he was in most of the early game, he's going to be level 6 before long. He's just a few points short of level 5 now. But, yeah, I mean, it's... Chains... I worry much for them right now, because they've got nothing out of their Night Stalker. He's died twice already. 3-0 on Juggernaut. So that's our solo lane hero. The hero that should be feeling the weakest as we get to the later stages of the early game is already done enough work that he's going to be in great shape levels-wise. He's going to have plenty of gold, and he's going to be on his way to an early set of items that he really should not have at this stage. 2 deaths on the Tiny, or excuse me, 2 assists on the Tiny, 2 assists on the Magnus. They found some gold as well. Then you've got 2 deaths on the Clockwork. Compare that to the Juggernaut, who was in a very similar situation. 1 death on the Night Stalker and 1 on the Shadow Demon. And given that their lineup and the way that they seem to be building right now, and again, keeping an eye on Chains, yeah, he is going to go right for the defusal. And that plays in exactly to what I was talking about what their game plan had to be. This is not a game where they want to take their Phantom Lancer to 40 or to 50 or to 60. This is a game where they need him fighting and pushing quickly. And this is honestly a little more extreme than I thought they would go. Drums, I feel, is pretty essential to a Phantom Lancer to be able to fight. But going straight for the defusal, they're going to start bouncing him around and looking to do damage with him very early on. They're going to look to capitalize on that ahead of the Gyrocopter. Gyro will be getting himself a Shadow Blade, which again, I think plays, you know, I kind of predicted that during the draft, that skipping the BKB in this situation, going right up to the damage build, and he's going to synergize that along with Magnus. And Magnus has not put a point into Empower yet. That's pretty typical. He'll probably go ahead and max his Skewer. And then at 11, obviously, he'll take his second point into Reverse Polarity. But, I mean, Empower is going to be coming out right about the time that Phantom Lancer and Gyro both want to fight. So the timing of it's going to work out just fine for them. And that's just understanding the context of the game and the pace of the game. Ice has actually just picked up a support item here, going with the Urn. Nothing wrong with that. Gives him a little extra mana regen. He actually went Arc Boots as well, and that's really, really cool. I think that's such a cool item choice from him. Phase Boots or Treads are usually the order of the day on a Juggernaut. And then if they really are worried about mana, they'll just spend 600 gold and get a bottle. But Ice in this lane, opting to go ahead and get up an Urn plus Arcane Boots, that's a Juggernaut who is going to want to fight all the time. That's a Juggernaut who's going to want to be pushing all the time. He's going to hook up with his teammates very soon. And they're just going to start pushing towers. And we can see the Shadow Blade is complete on XY now. So everything really going quite swimmingly for them. And we just hit 10 minutes. We'll see Chipix pick up a DD. They'll go into his bottle. Go ahead and take a look at our net worth. We can see the Gyro, as I would say is pretty predictable, sitting on top of the net worth tab. 3 of the top 4 all belonging to Zenith. Not the situation you want to find yourself in if you happen to be on the side of Chain Stack. The gold, yeah, leveled out at about 5,000, but moving in the direction of Zenith as well, and the experience right in that general vicinity too. 1 to 4, Chain Stack didn't manage to get 1 on the board at the very least, but Zenith in utter control of this game so far. And back to our Phantom Lancer. Yep, he's not super far away from his defusal. It's going to come out in time for them to try and defend a push here, if the push is going to come. And actually, Juggernaut's just going to get himself a solo kill here in the jungle. So Ayesee is just being a one-man wrecking crew moving through that jungle. And he's actually going to go mech. So yeah, this is a really cool approach to this Juggernaut. And I've seen Juggernauts build like this before, but not quite to this extreme. Like, I've seen a Juggernaut get a mech, but I don't know that I've ever seen a Juggernaut get a set of Arcane Boots, a mech, and an Urn. And I just think that's such an excellent way to play him, given what they're going to be up against, given the strengths they're going to have, and given the fact that Juggernaut is not a right-click hero for the most part. Juggernaut can carry with an immense amount of farm. I mean, he's got Blade Dance, and, you know, the crit that comes from that does give him some late-game potential and what have you. But most of Juggernaut's usefulness... Oh, hold on. Risk's going to be telekinesis. Here comes Magnus, and Magnus just... Yeah, Yamate just kind of boned that. He really had a chance to hit a skewer there, but... Instead, just eats a cog in the face, forced the man himself back up. Chibik's now being pursued out. And Chibix is probably dead. Actually, there's no probably to it. Chibix is super dead. So Zenith improves their score, make it 6-1 now. And the Night Stalker pick not exactly going in their direction. You pick a Night Stalker right now, you want him exerting his influence on the map. You want him being scary. You want him being a hero that makes the enemy feel very uncomfortable if they're not up under their tier 2s, or if they don't have wards, or excuse me, not up under their tier 1s, or if they don't have wards all over the map. And right now, I mean, look at the warding coming out from Zenith. They have one right here. A very situational ward, to put it very, very mildly. And they are just not worried at all. They're playing fearless. Look where XY is, for example. I mean, now that he has a Shadow Blade, that obviously gives him a little bit more security. But just not feeling any pressure whatsoever. And that comes, again, from solid laning. Lanes going a lot better than they should have in a lot of regards, mid and bottom in particular. But, I mean, what else can you expect whenever you have a team, a very talented team, who, and I'm sure playing with 2 very talented stand-ins today. But Chain's nonetheless playing against one of the best teams on the planet with 2 stand-ins, and they were a squad who, not exactly the most experienced squad in the competitive environment to begin with. Back to our Tiny, he's picked up a set of Arc Boots as well. And he's level 7, about to be level 7 anyway. But this is not the situation that Chains really could afford to find themselves in at all. Chains needed to take control of this game early. They drafted a lineup that would give them the chance to take fights early. And here we go. We're going to see Ice playing real aggressive. Now we're going to have a quick pause from our Tiny from Freedom. So we'll wait for everything to resume. It looks like, yeah, we did have a disconnect on the Shadow Demon. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us this morning. You're on One More Game TV 2. If you're just tuning in, we are 13 minutes and 20 seconds into Game 1 of this best of 3 between Chain Stack and Zenith. Zenith, a team that, I mean, they're just, I don't know that there's any team performing better than they have in the last 30 days. And I mean that globally. I don't mean just in this tournament or in this phase. Their record speaks for itself. They're 9-0 in terms of series, in terms of individual matchups, and they're 13-0 in games. And that includes a 2-0 blanking of Team DK just the other day. So Zenith, quite the obstacle for Chains to try to get past, but doing their best nonetheless, and despite being short-handed. As it stands, though, 6-1, and that gold graph continuing to slope its way downwards. Still a bunny slope, hasn't quite become the black diamond yet, but with a lineup like so, hang on, we're going to have an RP spin and a skewer back. That's going to be NWP brought back, and yeah. Or, excuse me, NWP bringing him back, I should say. The Phantom Lancer, the one picked off. And that's... There's only so many ways to say it. Everywhere that Zenith is executing, they are making me say the words, that's not something Chains should allow to happen. And with the Phantom Lancer playing that far out, Chains just... Chains the player, not the team, on the bad side of Wrath from there. And it looks like we are going to have a BKB come out from XY. And this is very solid. In the meantime, we will have a dive at bottom. So Zenith just taking kills absolutely everywhere on the map right now. And they're just TPing right back in to give it to them. And here we go. Ice rushed in again. Eats a Spirit Lance in the meantime, but immediately has down his healing ward. Here in mid, Zenith going to work on the tier 1. Should have no problem bringing it down.
Radiant's middle tower has fallen.
Taking a look at the items. Haven't really had a whole lot of time to talk about it. The items, we can see the Blink Daggers up on Magnus. We've got our Arc Boots on the way, or already up on our Tiny. Possibly looking to go drums next. In fact, I would say that's what he's going to be getting, as he's gone Robe of the Magi. And, yep, the Illusion, the Doppelwalk from Chain's going to keep him safe for the moment. Now, Chains did complete his Diffusal, so they have that going for them if they can get a nice fight. And by nice fight, I mean they need to be outnumbering their opponents. Unfortunately, Zenith, again, showcasing why they're one of the top teams on the planet. Their movement, their decision-making is just solid. They're in the right place at the right time, and when they do have a hero out by himself, like XY is right now, they're applying pressure elsewhere to try and draw attention away from him so that if he is gone upon, they're going to be giving up something in the process. And speaking of something in the process, going to be a tier 1. A lot of Arc Boots up on Zenith. We got 3 sets just right here. And mana, certainly not going to be a problem at any stage. Looks like Chains wants to go ahead and try to get a Reprisal Tower here in mid. The TP's immediately going to come in, though. The Illuminate's charging. They're going to try and melt this down. The tier 1 bottom does melt in the meantime. And here comes the call down. XY just going toe-to-toe with Chivix. And now, oh, Yamate going to catch him with the reverse polarity. Shockwave follow-up. And the dust is going to go off. In the meantime, here comes Ice to clean house. 3-0 the trade. And XY walks away with less than 10% of his hit points. But 1-11. Zenith in control of this game. And so far, Chains just scrambling to find something they can do. We can see Phantom Lancer's now picked up a Bracer. He might be getting a set of drums for himself. Getting the Diffusal before the drums, I mean, it's not the biggest deal in the world. You see a Diffusal come out first, though. It means he wants to start using it to fight at towers a lot quicker. He wants an item that's going to allow him to throw out a Spirit Lance and his Illusions to start chopping away at mana on what he views as mana-hungry heroes. But as mentioned, I mean, what value is a Diffusal against a team that has 4 sets of Arc Boots? They seriously have 4. Juggernaut has a set. Magnus has a set. Rubik has a set. Tiny has a set. Mana is not going to be a worry for Zenith at any point in this game. And now Ice picking himself up a point booster, possibly on a way to an Axe. And again, that jives with what I was talking about. Juggernaut having carry potential, but really when you pick a Juggernaut, you pick him for his innate skill set, not because you expect to right-click carry with him late. Getting an Axe just makes that innate skill set much better all around. Gets more jumps, obviously. And allows him to be relevant much later into a game if the game does go late. And XY, in the meantime, going to start laying into the tier 2 top. We've got a Skewer down here at bottom, and Chibix, wrong place at the wrong time. Another pause going to come out as Ice seems to... well, he paused. I was going to say he seems to be having a problem, but hopefully all is well. 17 minutes into the game, 12 kills on the board, all but 1 belonging to the Southeast Asian squad of Zenith. Looks like Ice is having problems. Since his comp's having issues, I would have never known it. Not gonna lie, would have never guessed. While we have this brief moment of downtime, guys, would love it if you would check G1.2p.com. That's our coverage hub for the G1 Champions League. You can find great articles. New interviews just went up today, actually, so you can check that out as well. Lots of good coverage for the G1, as well as your caster hub and everything you need. Informations, brackets, schedules, you name it for the G1 Champions League. And Chibix will be finished off, no problem. Ice showing, you know what? Comp problems or not, I can hit Q. That's not a problem. And now, Zenith with the mechanism complete on the Juggernaut. Magnus goes for a ride. Not necessary freedom. BM, bro. BM. Get manner, please. But the tier 2 not even really going to be contested, I don't think. I don't know what they can do. They're just so far ahead. 12,000 gold ahead at 18 minutes in. The experience even higher. And that's the thing is, generally you'll see a game like this, or at this stage of the game, one team will tend to be ahead by gold, but the experience will at least be in range. But when the other team is this far ahead experience-wise as well as gold, I mean, and we can already see Refresher is going to be the choice for Yamate. He's got his first Oblivion staff on the way to it. Or his Oblivion staff on the way to it, I should say. But, I mean, this is just... You feel for Chains. I mean, this is a team who impressed the world in getting here to begin with. And just not able to execute mechanically here. or just being out-executed. I mean, not to take anything away from Zenith. I don't want to make it sound like Chains is only losing because they beat themselves. Zenith did pretty good Dota team, last I heard. And when they're playing well like they are today, and then you're playing short-handed like Chains is today, and the people you do have are having some struggles and making things work out for them in lane and elsewhere on the map, generally not going to give you a favorable result. And Ayesee will be getting an axe. He's now added a Blade of Alacrity to go with his point booster. He's honestly not far away, only about 1,500 gold away from having it. Minerva going to spam what little he can, but with a mech up, with Healing Ward, with the shoe store's worth of arcane boots at this point. I hear Blue's in this season, at least that's what Zenith tells me. Don't know that they can. They honestly may just be able to clear. Yeah, I mean, that's the last outer tier tower remaining. They're probably just going to push the racks right now. The ult was popped by Night Stalker. And, yep, XY with his BKB, with the Aegis. He has a Morbid Mask. And the mech being used. And here we go. There's going to be an avalanche that's going to catch him. And there's the skewer from Magnus. Poor Minerva cleaned up very easily. Risk drops the cogs, but not sure what they're going to do there. And I guess you drop the cogs there just so they don't chase you to the well at this point. The tier 3 will be dropping. And I would anticipate the GG is likely to come out any time now, as Chains literally can barely leave their well at this stage. 1 to 13. Zenith ready to close this game out. Melee rack's already down. Ranged rack's on its way out as well. And they're actually just going to back out here. Just playing super safe. Going to go ahead and rotate to mid most likely. There actually isn't a tier 2 mid remaining, at least for the moment. But going to go grab the creep wave, and in the meantime, Ice and XY just not carrying that much. We're going to see Chibix engage on Ice, but now as the cavalry arrives, there's the Omni Slash, and that's just mean. That's just mean, Freedom. He was dead already. He was dead! And you toss a dead body. Oh, a horrible joke just popped into my head. Oh my goodness. One of those, you ever just have a joke pop into your head that you know you're never going to say out loud, but just the fact that you thought of it makes you feel like a horrible human being? I just had that happen. So not repeating it on air, too. Anyway, last tier 2. Gonna be dropping to Zenith now. Chain Stack can do little more, but spam from a distance and hope somehow that Zenith will make an unprecedented string of mistakes to open this game back up to them. 20,000 gold at 22 minutes in. That's the lead for Zenith. Coming up on 20,000 experience as well. And yeah, they're just being methodical, patient, and very, very consistent in the way that they're clearing this map. Tiny's rotated his way down the bottom. The refresher not far away from Yamate, so maybe we'll get to see a double reverse polarity just for the SNGs of it all. Chains has completed his drums, at the very least. Drums defusal, 22 minutes, not bad. Doesn't help when you've already lost racks, but, you know, it could be worse. It could be much worse. Poor Chibix, the stand-in, having a very unpleasant game, I'm sure. Really just unable to contribute much of anything. And not just because, you know, again, not as a slight to him as a player, but the Zenith just able to hit the right points, find the weaknesses in the lineup, exploit any openings anywhere they occurred on the map, and they are just absolutely rolling right now. We can actually see, and this is something I didn't even consider, but is really brilliant, really, is the Empower going on the Tiny, giving him plenty of punching power to make up for the fact that he's built predominantly like a support. He did go ahead and get himself up a set of drums following the arcs, and now he has a point booster on his way to an Axe. I don't think we're going to see the Axe, but hey, you never know. We will see it out on Ice Cubed. And we'll see him use it up. There was the RP wound up. Yep. Yamate just celebrating. The Aegis will be popped here, so able to bring down XY at least once. And Zenith, I'm really surprised Zenith isn't just rushing this now. Yep, here we go. They're going to move up a little bit more Illuminate. Still doing decent-ish damage with the healing ward there. Not nearly as threatening as we can see. XY is already back to full health. There's the toss. They're going to go ahead and toss the Omni, or toss the Juggernaut. Gets off the Omni Slash. And the second set of racks here in bottom. Likely to be dropping soon. There's a buyback from Minerva. They're going to challenge this. Tiny going to land an avalanche. Only catches Shipix. Now silenced down. Here comes XY. There's a call down. There's CRP. Caught 2 right in the middle of the call down. Phantom Lancer doing what damage he can. There's another toss of ice. Manages to get a couple of kills himself. And now he'll grab Risk as he runs for the well. And that'll be the GG. 19-1 in a 24-minute game. And Zenith showing why they are considered to be one of the, if not the current strongest team in Phase 3, at least in terms of their pure consistency and performance. This means that they improved their record in games, just in games, to 14 consecutive games won with this win here now. Obviously, Chains going to have a chance to try and knot it up in Game 2. Gonna have to put together a different game plan, though. They're gonna have to go in the showers. They're gonna have to talk it over, flip some tables, draw some diagrams on the old chalkboard, or if you're new school, on the dry erase board. You're gonna have to pound some Gatorade and rethink things. As the win from Zenith, about as lopsided as it comes. 25,000 gold in 25 minutes. That's 1,000 gold advantage built by Zenith over the course of this game. The experience just about there as well. And we can still see our Night Stalker continuing to be chased, and he will be cleaned up now. As we wait for the Ancient to explode, once again, I want to remind you guys that you can find all of your information about the G1 Champions League over at G1.2p.com. Great interviews, great articles and write-ups. If you want to take a look at the groups, take a look at the format, take a look at our schedule, so on and so forth, you can find all that info, as well as your broadcaster hub. And if you're the social type, you can communicate with us, and by us I mean the casters and such, all in real time via Twitter on G1.2p.com. Would absolutely love to hear from you guys in between games. Always try to respond as much as I can. Would love to have you as a follower as well, so you can follow me on Twitter at Ayesee, or if you're not into following folks, you can at least drop me a line via G1.2p.com. The Ancient now, on its last leg, should be cleaned up momentarily. And down it goes. Zenith rolls to a very impressive sub-30-minute win, 26-4. The final kill score, 26 minutes, 20 seconds, the official game score. And Shane Stack, who turned heads in Phase 2, had their world flip turned upside down by Zenith here in Game 1 of this Best of 3. I'm Ayesee. Thank you for joining us here on One More Game TV2. Game number 2 of this Best of 3 heading your way next. Make sure you stick with us. And again, G1.2p.com for all of your info updates and to say hi to me live via Twitter. See you in just about 5 minutes.